And joining us now to talk about some of the societal ramifications of mass shootings is Dr. Hank Schwartz from Hartford Healthcare's Institute of Living.
Dr. Schwartz was on the Governor's Sandy Hook Advisory Commission and is a world-renowned expert on mass shootings. And Dr. Schwartz, we appreciate your time tonight. Let me ask you the first question this way. From your vantage point as a person who studies mass shootings, what is the single most important thing we should all be thinking when we hear about another senseless shooting?
Well, to my mind, the issue of mental illness often comes up, almost always comes up as a question, but the single ubiquitous commonality between all of these shooters is the presence of a weapon of war, as we see in this case. So one would have to ask, what about a red flag law in Maine? Maine doesn't have a red flag law, so family members aware of the risk that a family member might present who is armed and perhaps unstable don't have very much that they can do to have their family member disarmed.
We occasionally do these interviews about how these kind of catastrophes affect children. Of course, it's very important to protect our children, but adults carry the scars of these events as well, right? So we hear about these over and over. What do you tell adults about who are affected by all the negative?
Well, about 95% by some studies of individuals who have been affected are going to develop post-traumatic stress disorder at some point. That may be the correct number. What we do know is that it's a huge number. What we tell people is that you've got to stay connected. You've got to communicate how you're feeling. You have to seek help when the issue is just too strong, just too negatively impacting you to manage it alone.
Yeah, Dr. Schwartz, you touched on this a second ago, but I want to ask this question again. We are hearing this suspect had reported mental health issues, including hearing voices. He's also a firearms instructor. We've been dealing with mass shootings for decades now and learned much about them. How does a person like this slip through the cracks?
That's a great question. How does it come about that a person like this could have been hospitalized, could have been voicing threats, and that there was no sharing of that information? Who do you share it with? One important concept is the concept of leakage, which is to say that in the vast majority of shootings, the shooter has actually said something to someone, family member, friend, doctor, some person, suggest or actually making comments online that this was going to happen. And very often there's no follow-up. So one message to the public at large is that when you hear anything about someone who might be dangerous this way, you've got to share that information. You have to speak up.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Schwartz. Good information that we all have to think about, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.